Hi there, my name is Hasar Sandal, and I'm a solutions engineer here at QBuild Software. Before we start delving into the demo, I want to first introduce you to QBuild. As an Epicor Platinum ISV partner for over 10 years, we've proudly delivered customer-centric solutions to more than 2,000 discrete manufacturers. We're also honored to partner with over 50 leading engineering systems, and also pride ourselves in being an international company with offices all around the globe. QSuite, our comprehensive solution suite, includes CADLink, ECX Manager, NestLink, and more. We empower our customers with streamlined processes and significant cost savings, ensuring efficiency and accuracy every step of the way. So today, we're going to be demoing CADLink integrated with SolidWorks and Epicor Kinetic ERP. Before we start, let's take a quick overview of what the process would look like without the use of CADLink. So as you can see here from this process chart, manual data input is time-consuming and it also causes a lot of errors. When we start to introduce CADLink into this process, you can see that the process is much more efficient and simpler. You can not only sync the items and bills of materials with just a click of a button, but you can also automate that previously manual process, ensuring that you have improved accuracy and also reducing the amount of time spent in this process as well. So let's start the demo. Here I have my SolidWorks software open with an assembly file. And let's say I'm a design engineer that's just finished making some changes to this assembly, and I'm now ready to update and push those changes to Kinetic in my bills of materials and items. So instead of doing that manually, I'm going to be using CADLink to do that for me. So automate a large portion of the process. It'll also give me as the user the opportunity to verify that data in an interface and massage or manipulate it as I would need to. So the first thing I want to point out is that CADLink is an add-in to my SolidWorks system. So to launch CADLink, I would have to open up the assembly that I want to launch it on. So this one that I've just finished updating. And from here in the add-in menu, I can launch CADLink. Here, CADLink is reading all of my SolidWorks data, checking if that top-level assembly already exists in my Kinetic ERP. And if it does, it's going to grab that data and do a live comparison between what I have in Kinetic and what I have in my SolidWorks system. Once it's finished making that live comparison, it will bring up the interface that we see here. So first thing to note that no data has been pushed to my Kinetic ERP yet. It's just brought up the CADLink interface where now as the engineer, I get the opportunity to verify the data and change or manipulate it as I would see fit. So the first thing I want to point out is that CADLink is maintaining that multi-level BOM structure from my SolidWorks assembly file. So it's reading the parent-child relationships from my model tree in SolidWorks. So the next thing you'll notice are the colored highlights here. And these colored highlights are the results of the live comparison that CADLink has made between my Kinetic and my SolidWorks data. So it gives a better visual representation of what changes are happening in the BOM from just a quick glance. So let's go through what each of these colored highlights means. So starting from the top, we have the white colored highlighted parts and rows. These white highlighted parts is CADLink telling the user that it's looked for this part number in my Kinetic part master and found that a record already exists. So when I go to hit save, no changes will be made to these white highlighted parts or rows because the data is already in sync between the two systems. Next, we have the yellow colored highlights, whether that's on my revision, my description, or even my quantity. This is CADLink highlighting field level discrepancies between my Kinetic and SolidWorks data. So taking this description as an example, I can right click on it to see what the discrepancy actually is. So here I can see that my SolidWorks description has a test appended to the end, and my kinetic description does not have that test appended at the end. And since CADLink does have bidirectional capabilities, meaning that it can not only update information in kinetic, but it can also update information back into my SolidWorks properties, I can actually pick and choose which description I would like to use here. So let's say I would like to use my kinetic description. I can select that. And let's say I also need to make an additional modification. I can do so here directly through the CADLink interface. And now when I hit save, CADLink will update this information in kinetic and also give me the ability to update it back in my SolidWorks assembly file as well to ensure that the data between the two systems is in sync. Moving further down, we have the green highlighted rows or parts, and these are parts that CADLink has searched for in your Epicor Kinetic Part Master, but has found that a record does not exist yet. So CADLink will highlight these parts in green and also automatically load in the data available from my SolidWorks assembly file. And when I go to hit save, CADLink will automatically create all of these green highlighted parts for me in my Kinetic Part Master and add it to the bill of material for this specific assembly. So you can start to see how much time CADLink can save and how much it can automate that process, because what may have taken 30 minutes to an hour to create all of these parts in Kinetic is now only taking me a matter of seconds. Next, we have these gray highlighted parts, and these are parts that CADLink found in your Kinetic bill of material, but did not find in your SolidWorks assembly file. And this may be due to a revision change. For example, in the latest updates that I made in SolidWorks, the revision no longer has a need for these specific parts, so I've removed them from my SolidWorks assembly file. When I go to hit save, CADLink will automatically remove these parts from my Kinetic bill of material to ensure that what I have in Kinetic is representative of what I have in my SolidWorks assembly file. Note that CADLink will only remove this part from the bill of material in Kinetic. It will not delete the part from my Kinetic Part Master. CADLink will never delete any items from my Kinetic Part Master list. Now, let's say I wanted to keep one of these parts. I can convert them to what CADLink calls a manual part. And by converting it to a manual part, you can see that the colored highlight has now changed from a gray to a blue, representing that CADLink now considers it a manual part. And now when I go to hit save, CADLink will no longer remove this part from my Kinetic bill of material. Similarly, I can use the manual part feature to add in parts on the fly to my Kinetic bill of material directly from the CADLink interface without having to model that part in my SolidWorks assembly file. So this feature is very useful for parts on the fly or consumable types of parts. Think paint, glue, fasteners, manuals, packaging, any parts that you wouldn't necessarily model or include in your SolidWorks assembly file, but you do need in your Kinetic bill of material for purchasing or manufacturing reasons. So to add in parts, manual parts like that, I would have to add in a manual part, and you can see that now I have a new row added in for me to add in the part. And here I can search my entire Kinetic Part Master for the part that I'd like to add. So let's say I need a bolt. Now I've searched my entire Kinetic Part Master list for all bolt parts that I have, and here I can select the one that I'd like to use. Now CADLink will auto-populate all of the available information for the specific part from my Kinetic Part Master database. All I'll have to do is specify the quantity that is required. Moving further to the right, we have some Kinetic specific fields, such as part type, unit of measure class, unit of measure, product group, part class, etc. So these are fields that will typically be required in Kinetic whenever you create a new part, or will be required for a bill of material or part information. So CADLink gives the engineer or the user the ability to verify that data and also specify that data for any of these new parts as well. So these ERP or kinetic specific fields are very, very important when you're creating these new parts, these green highlighted parts, because they do not exist in our kinetic database yet. So me as a user, I will have the ability to specify that information before I make or create the part in kinetic. So these are all dropdowns coming directly from my kinetic database based on what I have set up there. These are not values that I've set up in CADLink. They're coming directly from my kinetic database. So if I want to add in any more values or data here, I can simply go into kinetic, set that up there, and CADLink will pick that up automatically and display it here as well. Now, let's say, as an engineer, I'm not entirely sure what specific information or what is the accurate data that should go into these kinetic specific fields. Because I don't interact with the kinetic ERP system all that much, and I'm not aware of that may be my purchasing or a different team that handles those kinetic specific data. I can alternatively use a template to set up these kinetic specific fields based on a pre-existing part or an existing part in my kinetic part master list. So here, let's say I want to add it for this specific part here. I can select the dropdown, and then from the dropdown, select which part I'd like to use as a template for these kinetic specific fields. So just like that, CADLink has read the information from that part in my Epicor kinetic part master, and then automatically populated all of these kinetic specific fields based on that part. Moving further to the right, we have some additional columns for additional information and attachments as well. And moving all the way to the right, we also have a section here, or section of columns, dedicated to handling raw materials. So CADLink does have the ability to handle raw materials as well. If you have the raw material information already specified in your SolidWorks assembly, CADLink can pick that up and read it directly from there and populate it from your SolidWorks information and data. Alternatively, I can also add in materials or raw materials on the fly from the CADLink interface here as the user. So from here, I can search, again, my kinetic part master for any raw material or material that I'd like to add. And let's say I need some steel here. And I can add in, select the one that I like to use, and CADLink will auto-populate all of the information based on what I have set up in kinetic for this specific material. And I'll just need to specify the quantity for this material. And just like that, I've now added in a material for the specific part, which will be available to me in my kinetic bill of material once I save these changes. So next, let's talk about the side panel here and the tabs that you have on the top right-hand corner here as well. These tabs provide additional information and also functionality for the user, which they can use to verify the data and also set up additional information in kinetic as well. So here we have the BOM Changes tab, and this is a summary of all of the changes CADLink will be making in kinetic when I hit the save button. So here you can see some notes of what changes CADLink will be making in kinetic. For example, for this part, it is telling me it's going to create the part new and then insert it into the bill of material, or simply just insert the part into the bill of material if it already exists. I can also double click on the part on the BOM Changes tab here to highlight where the part, which part it's referring to on the BOM grid as well. I can also export this BOM Changes tab to a PDF or an Excel file, along with the BOM grid as well. CADLink also offers the ability to handle operations as well directly through the CADLink interface. So from here, I can actually add in my own operations one by one, or I can preload or load in operations from a template based on an existing subassembly and operation set in my Kinetic database. So here, let's say that this subassembly here uses the same operations as this subassembly that I have set up in Kinetic. I can load in the operations, and just like that, I now have these operations assigned to this subassembly. Now I can go into the interface here and relate the operations to the children parts as well. If I leave the related operation sequence here at 0, CADLink will automatically assign all of the children parts to operation sequence 10 when I hit save. Or I can specify where specifically I want the operations or these parts to start in the operation sequence, like so. Next, we have a couple of read-only tabs. So we have the Impact tab here, which will display some read-only information from my Kinetic ERP database. For example, the inventory information, PO information, where that part is currently being used in other subassemblies in Kinetic, and also some costing information as well. Similarly, I also have this CAD Data Tab, which will display all of my SolidWorks properties for that specific part, so I don't have to keep switching back and forth between SolidWorks, Kinetic, and CADLink to cross-reference and verify that data. It's all available to me here, right in one interface, to streamline that process and save more time. Lastly, we have the Messages tab. CADLink will always validate your data based on the rules and restrictions that you have set up in your Kinetic ERP database. So Kinetic requires a description for all subassemblies and assemblies, and here we can see that I have a message telling me that one of my parts or subassemblies has an empty description, and Kinetic does not like that. If I have any messages in this Messages tab, you'll notice that CADLink will gray out the Save button and not allow the user to save, because even if we did want to save, Kinetic itself would not accept the data as it is right now. So I can double click on the message to highlight where that error is originating from on the BOM grid. And here I can see that the description is empty. And here I can also see on the BOM grid that my description is in fact empty here. So I can type in my own description, like so, and resolve the message. Now that I have no messages in my Messages tab, CADLink has now re-enabled the Save button and will allow me to save and commit these changes into my Kinetic ERP. Let's say I did not know what the accurate description was in this scenario at this point in time, but I still wanted to save the rest of the data and rest of the changes that I made to the other subassemblies and items on this BOM to Kinetic. I can use the Save checkbox column here to pick and choose which parts and subassemblies I want to include in the save when I hit the Save button and commit these changes to Kinetic. So if I didn't know what description would be accurate in this case, but I still want to save the data, I can skip this subassembly in the save and work around that message because we're no longer including this part in the save, and save the rest of the data. Now, this is only a temporary workaround because the description is still empty, so when we relaunch CADLink and include this part in the save, CADLink will still display that message of the description cannot be empty. However, it is there as a simple workaround if you still want to save your data or push longer lead time parts into Kinetic before getting in all of the rest of the information. So I hope that demo gave some insight and visualization into how CADLink can help better automate your process and also make your data more accurate in not only Kinetic, but also SolidWorks as well. So, ready to take your workflow to the next level? Don't wait any longer. Schedule a demo with us today on our website. Simply click the link in the description box below and let's get started on enhancing your productivity. Take the first step towards a more efficient workflow now. And that's all for today's video. If you found this helpful, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content. Also, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn for more updates. But thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.